In this conclusion to Nighthaunt Week, we'll take a look at the many tormented souls that make up the Wraith host. This really is kind of the general term, the name given to the main fighting body of a Nighthaunt army. Now I want to point out up front that we're not going to be talking about Spirit Host, Hexrays, or the Black Coach because fundamentally their lore did not change very much from the previous incarnation that we had. And I've already covered them in another video, which I will link to down below. But there are so many new units in this faction, we have no shortage of things to talk about. Individually, they don't have a ton of lore on them, but I'll share what we have and we'll do a great discussion at the end. Each one of these things does really go a long way, though, to showing the true character of Nagash, so keep that in mind as we go through these. Starting off with the Glaive Wraith Stalkers. These were once upon a time very agile and adept mounted hunters. They bore down on their prey for the thrill of the chase and the hunt. Now Nagash wanted to use their skills at rapid maneuvers and hunting, so he gave them a twisted new form in this terrible undeath to get the job done. Part man, part horse. They move in packs, and they hunt their chosen prey swiftly. But now that thrill of the hunt is replaced with a cold determination. This really is more of a case of function over form when it comes to punishments, but it makes them striking looking. Then there's the Grim-Ghast Reapers. In life, these were more sophisticated folks who made sure that blood never touched their hands. They were careful and meticulous killers, used poisons, assassins, and such. Think of like political and corrupted leaders that kill for power. It's all behind the scenes, behind closed doors, no one knows about it. Very discreet, while keeping up this pristine public image. In the afterlife, Nagash saw fit to make them the polar opposite of what they were. Instead of calm and this level-headed facade, they are now crazed maniacs with broken minds. They're given a huge reaping scythe, and they have become whirlwinds of gore and bloodshed. The most openly brutal melee presence on the battlefield. They're blinded and then pent up full of rage and unleashed, so they just swirl around wildly, producing the same kind of murder and bloodshed they did in their real life, but this time it's very visceral. It's out there, everyone to see it. Next up is the Chain Rasp hordes, and this is the most predominant, the most numerous unit in all of the Nighthaunt army. These are lesser spirits made from the souls of criminals from across the realms. The idea being they were in chains in life, and that's just going to continue. They're never going to know freedom from these chains and weight of justice. Now, as lesser spirits, they don't have a lot of autonomy, so they move like a wild rabble, killing targets of opportunity above anything kind of cohesive and intelligent. The leader of these units is called a Dread Warden, and he carries with him a very special set of candles. Chain Rasps see the candles, and in their kind of twisted vision, it looks like the light of freedom. Like if you were in a dark cave and you saw light at the end of the tunnel, you would desperately move towards it seeking freedom, and that's exactly what they do here. This is how Nagash has orchestrated these units to be cohesive. The Dread Warden leaves a huge horde of Chain Rasp horrors to battle. He brings them up to the fight. They're following the light because they're desperately seeking that freedom. And then what would you have it? It leads them straight into the enemy. And it's just like dangling that thread of freedom right in front of them, but they're never going to achieve it. But it makes them a very effective wrecking ball going from all points of the battlefield, just rolling over enemies near them, all trying to get to the light. Next up are the Bladegeist Revenants. And these are souls taken from anyone who met a particularly gruesome end. Think of folks who were drowned alive, attacked by a vicious creature under torture, and in those last moments of being alive, they were a desperate frenzy, right? Where you fight with everything you have. Someone who's like, in our real world, car goes underwater, people who scratch and claw at the windows trying to bust out, that kind of manic frenzy. And what Nagash did is he froze that moment, and that is their perpetual reality. They're given a long broadsword and really just thrown into battle. They fight with a frenzy of someone at the point of utter desperation. No clean kills, no peerless warriors. These are not great fighters per se, but they're wild and unpredictable, and they flail as if they were someone unhinged, which makes them equally hard to fight and counter. Because of that wild and unpredictable nature, it makes them wrecking balls when they go headlong into an enemy. It's so hard to counter someone who fights with that kind of flailing madness. Next unit is the Mere Morn Banshees. In life, these were women who hungered for arcane knowledge and power. They spent their lives seeking and pursuing the secrets of harnessing magic, but they didn't pay proper respect to Nagash in doing so. And so in the afterlife, Nagash just let them continue their search, which sounds very benevolent, but he put his little twisted spin on it. These women were blinded in all senses. No sense of touch, taste, smell, nothing like that. They do have a spirit sight that allows them to see magic, like when it's being used, cast, shot across the battlefield, what have you. And so when a wizard casts a spell, they rush towards it, tear it apart, and devour the magic for themselves. And so this acts as a defense against spellcasters, these ladies who are constantly on the hunt on the battlefield trying to tear apart magic, and also get their eternal punishment from Nagash for not paying proper tribute. And the last unit today are the Dread Scythe Harridans. And in life, these were healers and nurturers, women who lived a life of compassion and a pursuit of medical sciences. Their goal was to stave off death, which is also to prevent Nagash from claiming a soul, and you can see how this would earn his anger. And to that end, Nagash made a very special curse for them, called the Harridan Curse. Their forms are twisted to reaping scythes as sharp as steel. They can't talk, but they always give a horrific scream, like this guttural, gut-wrenching scream. And to that end, the souls of these healers and caregivers have become engines of swirling death. And that's not really the worst part of this hex, because the worst part is the healer's mind is still alive and intact inside, so they have to watch for an eternity as they slaughter and maim and kill and destroy, but never be in control of their own actions. Which, to be perfectly honest, is probably the worst of all of these, but possibly the most personally egregious to Nagash. So stepping back, big picture, when we talk about all of the kind of Wraith hosts, all these ghosts here, why are these incredibly cool units? Because they don't have a lot of lore individually, as I said, but they kind of collectively make up the army. These units really exemplify Nagash's punishment in the afterlife, his sense of justice that produces weapons of war. And it also shows the kind of things that he can do to a soul. This is a theme we've seen quite a bit more recently with battle tomes coming out. For example, Daughters of Cain. Morathi is able to take one of the elven souls taken out of Slaanesh and morph it to an image that she deems likable, so she makes the Melusai and Kinnerai. Teclis took a bunch of souls and made what we now know as the Ednith Deepkin. And obviously Sigmar has warped souls himself and made the Stormcast Eternals through reforging. But we've never really seen what Nagash does to souls, because everything we've had up till this point is kind of more traditional fantasy where it's like, oh, he raises the body back up. But that's not the same thing as warping a soul to a new physical image. And each one of these has a very different battlefield role. It's all utility, right? I need to do the deeds of war, and these are the instruments with which to do that. But they all have a solid theme running through them, which is to say, you were crummy in life, or you didn't honor Nagash, so you're going to find a unique punishment for that while still serving me in my army. And collectively, I think that is really what the point of these units is to say Nagash not only has the ability to warp and twist souls just like any other deity in this kind of universe, but he kind of combines this horrifying justice and practical element into his units. Practical being what they actually do on the battlefield, justice being how he tortures the soul for eternity in that. And I think that sense of it is wholly unique amongst all other gods. Alariel's kind of unabashedly all about life, and she loves her Sylvaneth, but she kind of just bestows blessings on a lot of people. Sigmar is all about his heroes, the Stormcast Eternals, people who have earned the right to call themselves heroes before they ever became a Stormcast. But neither of those things really have to do with justice and shaping eternity for the person that they affect. Like, Sigmar takes soldiers and gives them a mission, but it's different when it's an individualized mission for someone. I think that's very different. Because even though Stormcasts are theoretically serving their God King for eternity, it has a different kind of temperament to it than saying, I'm going to stand before judgment and receive judgment from Nagash and have that be my eternity. You know what I mean? One's an eternal mission, one's an eternal judgment that has a job assigned to it. And that distinction brings a lot of character and uniqueness to Nagash in this kind of grand narrative of gods walking amongst men. It makes him very, very different. And reinforces really this idea that we've seen a lot about Nagash. We've covered it in the 2 Nagash videos, which is that he is all about order. It's just his order. That's the only reason he doesn't get along with the forces of order. It's that it has to be Nagash's will. And that is really exemplified when his forces focus on eternal justice, in quotes, while also serving his personal ends. So friends, thank you so much for joining me during Nighthaunt Week. Of course, we'll be talking about these units throughout the rest of the month and in the future. It's an army that I personally found way more excitement for than I was expecting when I really cracked into the book. I thought they were, I got it. It was kind of slim, and so I was like, it's probably not going to be here. But man, when they told the story of Lady Ollander and some of the various units that we talked about here today, in particular the Bladegeist Revenants are my absolute favorite of this list. I really got stoked for this army, and I may pick them up as a third faction between my Chaos and Fire Slayers. Hold on your hats, because we're not stopping here. Next week we are diving into Stormcast Eternal Week. I've only, surprisingly, for being the poster boys of the entire game, I actually only have like 1 or 2 videos about Stormcast, and so we're going to really dedicate some monumental time to them. Be sure to check in on Monday as I have a very special announcement. It's going to be a week like none other. Something very awesome planned, and I can't wait to share it with you. With that said, if you enjoyed these videos, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe, and share it with a friend. And if you'd like to support the channel in a more personal way, please consider becoming one of my patrons over on Patreon. All patrons of a certain level are entered to win a raffle. I raffle off every single battle tome that I take and review, so obviously I have the Nighthaunt and Stormcast ones coming up, and you don't want to miss those. Every dollar helps me moving towards my goal of doing this part-time as a job, working for you, producing content that you love. And if you can't support the channel, I completely understand, and I'm just so thankful that you spent some time with me here today, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday's video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.